Hey, what's going on, everyone? First of all, I want to say thank you for everyone watching this video. I really appreciate it. I want to share my story just so you can benefit and you can take my experience and apply it in your own life if you're having similar struggles as me. So what this is going to be a video series on why I went from practicing a fully plant-based diet to a primarily raw animal foods-based diet. And so with this first video, I'm just going to give a short background as to why I got into a plant-based diet to heal my chronic illnesses and what issues I eventually had with it long term, and then sort of the benefits I've experienced thus far on a primarily raw animal foods based diet. So to start, I've got some notes on my phone here, so I'm going to be looking back and forth at this just to make sure that I cover everything. I want this video to be short and concise. I'm not going to do much editing. This isn't going to be super glamorous. This is purely for information. Just want to get it out there just to make sure that everybody that's having similar experience as me can have the option to try something else if they're open to it. And so I would say around 2012, I was riddled with a ton of issues. I'd subluxed my back, so I had a permanent semi-dislocation with a fractured L5 vertebrae. The two discs right above it, the L3, L4, were degenerate, and then the next disc up was bulging. I had received an MRI. That's Gemma in the background. She's a little spaniel. She's such a cute little one. Gemma. So I also had a chronic candida rash that was coming out of my skin, up my back, on my face. Doctors told me it was a yeast infection with psoriasis on my face. Adrenal fatigue, my blood pressure was in the 80s over 50s, which is considered like advanced adrenal fatigue. An underactive thyroid or hypothyroidism, where I wasn't able to sweat during activities or like exercise, working out. My palms, my armpits were constantly sweaty. I wasn't regulating my body temperature very well. I would have regular fevers, cold when I shouldn't be cold, so that's definitely thyroid, parathyroid. Just overall, chronically inflamed, very puffy, very pale, just sickly looking. I had sciatica pain from the back injury. I was just very unpleased and unsatisfied with life. Joint pain. It got to the point where it was so bad I had to stop working at a desk job. And I remember, trying to throw a baseball 20 feet and just pinching the nerve in my back. There was just so much pressure and tension throughout my body that I had to do something. I went to so many different doctors, they couldn't help me. I decided to take my health journey into my own hands, take responsibility for it, and that's how I found yoga. And then I transitioned into meditation, which was beautiful. I'm very grateful that I found those two modalities. And then eventually I found the work of Arnold Ehret. I found Dr. Morris, and I'll say that with the fruits, the fasting, the herbs, I definitely found relief in the amount of inflammation I had in my body. I was able to regulate my body temperature much easier. I really brought my blood pressure up to what I would call normal levels, around 120 over 60 to 70. So I did have some great benefits of these plant-based detoxification modalities. I give them a ton of credit. I do feel that they potentially do have a time and a place. But there were a lot of issues that came up, a lot of issues that I felt really uncomfortable with, and so I'll start listing the issues that came up over time. There were some that came up right away. For example, I was not ever satiated, I don't believe ever once with any meal like I am now. There was this constant struggle with binge eating. I had developed a very poor relationship to food where I'd want to fast throughout the day and then binge eat at night. I felt that once I started eating during the day, I really had great challenges to stop eating before I went to bed. I would generally just start eating and then stop as I went to bed. I started to develop cavities. I broke 8 teeth. And I'll say like the plant-based, like raw vegan, fruitarian kind of lifestyle really helped mitigate the injuries and the inflammation. Like I had a shoulder injury, obviously the back injury, and then just joint pain. And it definitely helped it. I also had I'd also torn my sternum a bit, the cartilage, and it definitely mitigated it. But it kind of started to creep back in, and it was still a daily struggle to keep the pain down in my back and my hip. I would say it was like 60-70% less, but it was still there. I mean, I was constantly thinking about food. Throughout the 6-year period of time that I was practicing a plant-based diet, I had issues with gas, bloating, farting, like constantly. It got progressively worse. So that's an indication that my digestive fire or digestive capability weakened over time. And I became to experience major blood sugar swings as time went on, especially with fruit. I would get very lethargic, very tired, very sleepy after just say like a single dragon fruit. And I wasn't so radical that I just tried to live on fruit endlessly. I would go periods, like I had more of like a whole foods plant-based diet base, and then I would do like periods of time where I would eat fruit and take herbs to kind of like what these doctors like Dr. Morris and Eric talked about would be kind of like these periods of cleansing. And so I tried to be as rational in this journey as I could be, although it was definitely taking its toll over a period of time. Even when I tried to fall back on trying to get enough protein, just enough carbohydrates, I mean, eating as much as I could, I just didn't have the energy levels and just wasn't confident. I didn't feel right. Over time, my level of confidence, my self-esteem was, going downhill. I had major bouts of depression where I would go to my mom's house and binge on food and veg out for 1-2 months at a time. And it was the first time in my life I could actually relate to what depression was and this feeling of deep hopelessness, like I couldn't even go out and work a minimum wage job. I mean, there were periods of time where I just felt so dysfunctional that I didn't know what I was going to do. And I'd never experienced this till I went on a fully plant-based diet and completely removed saturated fat and cholesterol from my diet. I had a very low libido the first 4.5 years that I was plant-based. I didn't go on a single date. I had no desire to interact with females or, even my social life was like much different than it was. I was just very uncomfortable in social situations. I only wanted to be around people that were doing exactly what I was doing and practicing exactly what I was practicing. And I don't see that as being very healthy now. Unless I had direct support from others and I was living with people that were practicing a similar lifestyle, I was completely dysfunctional. And I really didn't know why, just because I had experienced some benefits on the plant-based regenerative lifestyle, and so I thought it was still the way for a great period of time. But I was traveling for about 6 months. I went to Australia, I went to Bali, and I also went to Thailand, and in Thailand, I mean, it was getting progressively worse, like from Australia to Bali to Thailand. But in Thailand, I mean, I had so much chronic fatigue, and I was feeling so depressed. I would lay in bed. I mean, I would sleep 12 to 15 hours, but not really sleep, just kind of lay there, toss and turn, not really want to get out of bed, not feeling rested. And, it got to the point where I was like, I got to do something at this point. It doesn't matter what it is. I just have to do something because I am so dysfunctional that I'm not even living my life anymore. I started looking into Ajna's Vonda planets. I don't know how I think I came across them from someone's YouTube channel. Maybe this dude named Svedia. I can't really remember. But yeah, so I'm checking it out. I buy his book, and I remember him talking about reversing chronic fatigue and nutritional depression within 10 to 20 minutes from a raw, like a raw steak. So say like a raw ribeye steak. And I was really desperate at this point. And I'm sure for anybody like on a, primarily fruitarian raw vegan diet to go and eat raw meat, it just sounds like insane, which it did to me at the time too. I mean, it still kind of seems a little odd, but I found a pretty quality source from Australia, and yeah, I mean, I had my life partner there, who I just can't thank enough. Oh my gosh, you know who you are. Thank you so much for all the support that you've given me along the journey. I mean, I think we were both at the most dysfunctional point in our lives. But anywho, so yeah, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna eat it, but you gotta be here for me in case I need to go to the hospital. I was like, I could die right now, but like honestly, like I was to the point where I was like, I was willing to do whatever it took, and I was like, if I can reverse chronic fatigue and like this feeling of depression within 10 to 20 minutes, I was like I'll try it. The hospital's down the road, so I eat it, and it was like a light bulb came on in my body. It was like someone turned on the lights. This feeling of peacefulness and contentness and compassion just came over me. That night I only needed 6 to 7, I'd say like 7 hours of sleep, and I felt rested. It was a very, very obvious indicator that I was malnourished and I was starving. I had not believed that we needed animal foods. Some people may not. Like I said, I'm just sharing my personal experience. This was probably this is like the best decision I could have made for myself, as far as helping myself in this period of time. And so it's been about 4.5 months now. I've been following a primarily like raw primal diet, as Ajna's Vonda Planets teaches. Not like exactly like to the T like he teaches, but it's pretty similar. Even my partner has had a complete 180 in her health. She now has her like regular period back. I mean, she's got her hormones working now. I mean, she feels like a different person. She's, robust, she's strong, she's healthy, she's vibrant. She's much more confident. And so, I mean, I see it in others. I see it in myself, of course. That's why I'm speaking to you, is because I've had such a life-changing experience with bringing animal foods back into my diet. And so here are some of the benefits I've experienced over the past 4.5 months. I've gained about 25 pounds of lean muscle mass. I was 165 pounds. I'm now about 195 pounds, and I have more muscular definition than I did before. And that wasn't the reason why I did this. I did this just because I want to feel good, and I want to be functional, and I want to be able to experience life. But this was definitely a huge benefit because it makes it so much easier to move my body and just function and work. And, now I'm working 12, 13, 14-hour days. Hard labor. if you look around here, there's just, I mean, there's so many branches cut down. We've been trimming trees and just hauling them and carrying them. So I'm super grateful just to be able to work again. With that, I have never felt so little inflammation in my body. I think I can honestly say I no longer have any inflammation. My back's stronger than it ever has been. I can deadlift. It's not impressive, but like a little over 300 pounds now, where I'm, excuse my language, I mean, I probably couldn't even have deadlifted, half that. When I was 165 pounds, I was just so weak and frail. My digestion is just so spot on. I don't have any gas. I don't have any bloating, other than a few times where I ate some beef and then drank some raw milk. But yeah, besides like poor food combination, I haven't had any issues with it. I don't think the raw dairy doesn't really work for me 100%. I think like the meats definitely, like more of the carnivorous approach is doing the best for me at this point in time. So that's zero fiber with essentially zero carbohydrates. I'm mentally so much more peaceful, so much more grounded. I'm happier, generally just more content. I'm sleeping much better. I'm not having the crazy nightmares and like the inability to fall asleep, the insomnia. Emotionally much more stable. I can honestly say I've all but eliminated my my challenges with binge eating, which was just huge. I mean, that was felt like it was taking over my life. And there's only been a few times, but that was when I was like getting into like nut butters and stuff again, which don't do well for me. They're not near as digestible, but when I'm practicing exactly what I want to be practicing, then my binge eating is essentially non-existent. My digestion is just like perfect. My body temp is regulating itself much more, much better. In the cold, I feel warmer, and I can still tolerate the heat really well. I just feel I can feel my metabolism working. Like I totally feel it on a whole nother level. Before, when I would eat, I would just get cold and kind of clammy and just like my body was shutting down. Now I feel my body turning on and working. My injuries are finally healing for the first time in since I experienced the injuries. My shoulder is completely healed. Like I can touch my hands together behind my head. And like I said, my back is feeling so much better. And if I do get cuts or scratches, they're healing faster than they ever have been in my life. And I can definitely say that the information that I learned with Dr. Robert Morris and these plant-based healing modalities are not what I've experienced with the animal foods. I've been taught that animal foods are acidic and they cause inflammation and acids in the body. And, I just have not had that experience. That was a belief system. Those are ideologies that I was, I had programmed myself with, and it was essentially a religion that I was following blindly, without, seeing what's on the other side of the fence. And I thought it was the way. I thought fruits and herbs and fasting were the only thing that was going to help me, and they did to some extent, but they also had so many, created so many issues at the same time, to the point where I honestly felt that I was worse, the last few months of being plant-based than I was before I even began my health journey. And so that's why I'm sharing this information with you guys, is because I just think that's so powerful, what I've experienced. And now I'm getting contacted on a very, very regular basis by friends I used to live with, random people on the internet, not so random. I just spoke with a gentleman who spent maybe $4,000 or $5,000 with Morris's clinic and has had absolutely no results. So we're going to try a different approach for a little while and see how that works. But one of my roommates has had just probably even more of a profound experience than I have. Um, I'm seeing people on a very regular basis that are actually finally healing their underlying issues um, with a meat-based diet, and it's still almost like blowing my mind. It's so contra to everything that I've learned. And so the last thing I'm going to talk about are just some of the foods that I consume now. I just bought 10 pounds of pastured, grass-fed, grass-finished beef liver and heart as well. Um, Also the fattier cuts of steak, so like the ribeye, all pasture raised, all grass-fed, grass-finished. And so I'm not contributing to the factory farming. I'm actually supporting a practice that I feel much better about. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about what I did to help myself, because I just want to live, and I know so many of you just want to live and just be happy and be able to function in your own body like I wanted. We all do. And so those types of cuts of red meat, and I'll say that red meat's like the one thing that I actually desire on a regular basis, not so much chicken or lamb or fish. I also consume raw pastured eggs, both from a chicken and a duck. I've got some salmon roe in my freezer that I thaw out and eat on a somewhat regular basis. It came from Alaska. I had some like raw goat milk that was local. I went to the farm. Some raw cow's milk that's also local. I was experimenting with some raw cheeses, like cultured butters. But I'm really thinking that like I'm going to consume less and less of the raw dairy and just focus more on a carnivorous approach, because that's what I honestly feel the best with. So say a meal, I'll have some cuts of liver and then a little bit and then a steak with it. I'll probably use like a little bit of butter, because that still works really well for me. It doesn't hinder my digestion at all. But when I start putting like cheese and meat together, that's when I start experiencing a little fermentation, especially with milk. So I'm going to keep it as simple as possible while still being able to enjoy myself. And I'll definitely say it's more enjoyable. And it's just, every day I'm just like so grateful that I can wake up and say like, I can eat a meal, I can feel satiated, I can feel good, I can feel content, I can actually feel a pick-me-up from it. And then I can stop thinking about food and I can go live my life. Anyways, guys, this video is getting a little bit long. I thank you so much for sitting through it. If you have any questions, if you have any concerns, if you'd like to reach out to me and talk about what's going on in your life and maybe how I can direct you towards some information or just share my personal story on a deeper level, please contact me. Leave some comments below. Give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you'd like to follow more videos and see how this series unfolds. I'm also going to talk about how to reverse chronic illness with dogs, and I'm also going to be interviewing other individuals that have had life-changing experiences like me. So there's going to be essentially 3 parts to this channel. There are going to be just updates and just sharing my personal experience. There's going to be a section dedicated to helping dogs, which I have been doing for some time now and have had incredible success. And then lastly, interviewing people that have also had experiences like me that went plant-based to try to heal themselves. They weren't successful fully, and then tried the animal foods and have had a great success. And I'm not saying this is for everyone. I'm not saying a plant-based diet is not necessarily something that may work for something or for somebody, but once again, I'm just sharing my experience. Thank you guys so much. Tune in for more content, and say hi to little Gemma.